Are you a service-based business owner looking to increase profits to fund your lifestyle? Well, this podcast is for you. We bring you inspirational guests sharing actionable tips to solve many of the struggles you face each and every day. And now, over to your host, Paul Higgins.
Hello to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. And if you enjoy it, please subscribe. If you're a regular, thanks for your support. Love to get your feedback at paul@buildlivegive.com. It means the world to me when you do. Welcome to take notes, and the interviews are fully transcribed. Our guest is someone who started working for herself, then did some marketing for Mathletics, which is a great Australian company, and why I mention it, and loved the market research part of it so much, she decided to double down on that. And now she runs her own award-winning agency, and it is based in Canada, but she does service clients throughout the world. So why listen? Why being told your baby is ugly is a good thing. How you can do market research without all the complexity and high cost. And who is best to talk to your current and past clients to validate hypotheses. Over to Lisa Genovese from BottomLine. Welcome, Lisa Genovese from the BottomLine to the BLG podcast. Great to have you here, Lisa.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Paul. Thank you.
Now, can you please, for our audience, especially those that know you, can you give me your Canadian pronunciation of your name?
Absolutely. So Lisa Genovese. My last name is obviously Italian, but I gave up a long time ago on people getting it right, Genovese. And so thank you. You nailed it at the beginning of this.
Yeah, well, as we spoke in prep, there's a fantastic coffee brand here in Australia called Genovese. And I don't drink coffee, but my wife loves that coffee, and I love pronouncing that name. It's about the only thing in Italian I ever get right. So when finally I got the opportunity, you said, no, it's not, it's Genovese. I'm like, oh, okay. Anyway, so we did both. But
yes,
look, great to have you. Great to have you here. I'm so excited about today. We've had, wonderful conversations in the past, and it'll be no different for everyone listening today. So why don't we kick off with something that your family or friends know about you that we may not?
Oh, that's such a great question. This is kind of a funny one, but most people in my business life describe me as very extroverted. But my friends and my family know that I am actually a very introverted person. So I'm a bit of an ambivert. I can be extroverted when I need to be, but I like natural state. I actually like my alone time.
And I know I hear that from a lot of people, and it's so great that I think, you can describe that. It wasn't that long ago that, people didn't describe it that way. But, for you being, an introvert that acts very much as an extrovert at work, does that mean that, when you get home, do you collapse? Like, are you tired, or is it just something now that you got so used to doing?
Oh, that's a good question. I definitely have my days where I come home and I collapse. But I have done quite a bit of work actually with my coach around how to preserve my energy in the day, and also setting myself some breaks to actually recharge. So I'm not getting to the end of my day and coming home and just being, fried. I'd love to, pretend that I have that right down to a science. I don't. But it is, I have a couple tools in my tool belt to help me deal with it anyway.
Yeah, great. And look, for me, I have a nap every day. Okay,
Good
so
for you.
a lot older than you. I've now just hit the magical 50, and thanks to COVID, we had 3 people in the house. But anyway, maybe a 51st will be more entertaining. But yeah, I do 7 minutes of meditation and a 30-minute nap every day, and it just completely regenerates me and rejuvenates me, and it is magical. So. I know if you're out there listening and you watch that famous George Costanza, Sleep Under the Desk, maybe a bed if you're working from home is better, but I highly recommend it. So I know that, you've started your business, you've gone and worked for another business, and then effectively, you've just continued to grow this great agency, BottomLine, which we're going to talk more about. But tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. I often get asked, like, how the heck did you get into doing what you do now? And it's funny because I didn't start there. The beginning of my career, I worked with children with learning disabilities. And so I had a business that helped write their IPPs for school. We did tutoring programs, summer camp programs, etc. But what I learned about myself through that is, although I loved working with the kids, I really always gravitated back towards the business, marketing, research kind of components of it. And so eventually I sold that company to one of my employees, and I went back to school, and surprise, I took more business in marketing. And then, fresh out of school, I took a job with an agency that did marketing for IT and MSP firms. And it was there that I really got the opportunity to learn, why research was so important. It was interesting. They, as a company, really didn't have that philosophy. They were very much just kind of take what the client has to say at verbatim and, launch their campaigns from that. And I was always kind of like, hey, why don't we dig into that a little bit more and make sure that that's actually the right thing for their business? So by the time I left there, they had actually changed their approach to be much more research first. And which was a big win for me. And then I left and I started BottomLine. I did some work with Mathletics out of Australia, actually. And when they were first launching their brand in Canada to the external world, I was their marketing director. And but it was really a bottom line gig, and it was a variety of different activities. Funny enough, not a ton of on the research side. But as we kind of grew as a firm, it really became evident that research first approach was what made us very different. We were not afraid to challenge a client on, the way they wanted to approach things and say, just the way that things have always been done. Maybe that's why, your business isn't growing, or maybe that's why things aren't happening the way you want them to, and change may be needed. And we need data to support that recommendation as to what it is you should do next. So that's kind of the short version of kind of how I got to where I am now.
Excellent. And, you talked about a coach that's helping you at the moment, but other than the coach now, who also has supported you through this trajectory?
Oh my goodness, so many people. I've worked with several coaches in my past. Also worked with many consultants. I'm very blessed, though, to have such a great support network at home. I have a wonderful husband who is also an entrepreneur, but is incredibly supportive. I'm just very blessed to have great people, both in my kind of personal and work life, that are just a call away. I joined WPO, Women Presidents Organization, about a year and a half ago, and that has been just, I can't say enough good things. Such a great support network of other women who just get it. They're at the same level of business with the same, or similar, I should say, challenges, and that has just been a great place for me to kind of go when I need some extra help. That bouncing new ideas and just seeing other ways of doing things has helped me so very much.
And do you think there's a correlation between, your love of research and your love of, I suppose, doing the same of you, which is that self-development, open to getting support? Because, if you've had several coaches, you've got one now, you've got a great support group now with WPO, is that something that is, in your DNA to seek that support?
That's an interesting correlation that I truthfully have never thought of. I've always correlated it back to more one of my core personal values, which also happens to be a BottomLine company value, but besides the point, is leadership. And I have always found that just by nature, I will go to seek out, another leader who may have forged that path before to learn from them. But I actually never did connect those dots between that and research. But you're totally right. And that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. And just tell us a little bit about how WPO operates.
Yeah, for sure. So they are a global organization. and it's obviously females only, so women presidents. There's a revenue requirement to join, and of course an application and interview process to be able to join. We go through every month. We have a chapter meeting. Everybody gives a brief update on kind of the state of affairs in our personal and business life. We have to update on our commitment from the month prior. But then the latter half of the meeting, which is my most favorite, is where we do kind of experience share learning, where a couple of topics are pulled out of the updates, challenges typically, and then the group asks clarifying questions about the issue, and then everybody shares an experience around the issue if they can, for that person to learn from. And I can't say enough good things. I have walked, into that room, with a major challenge in my business, and often walk out with, here's what I'm going to do next. And knowing that I have, a great group of people behind me to kind of cheer me on and catch me if, it doesn't work out, or catch me if I fall.
Yeah, and it sounds similar to EO, Entrepreneurs Organisation. And, I suppose the obvious question is, why female only for you? Why was it important to do female only versus mixed gender?
Really great question. And I did look at EO. The requirements are the same. The format is very, very similar. The kind of key distinction between the two is WPO has paid facilitators, whereas EO forums are self-facilitated, like group facilitated, which is fine. But I certainly found, more value in having that paid facilitator come and be prepared and really, facilitate the meeting.
Yes.
The other reason for me, it wasn't necessarily the choice around gender. It was more around values fit. I have many, many friends who are members at EO, and they love it. But I visited a couple of times, and I just found for myself, for lack of better words, I didn't feel like I belonged. It wasn't that the people were bad or that the format was wrong. It was just wasn't quite right for me. I was a member of a private peer group that was just self-facilitated years and years ago that was mixed gender, and I got a ton out of it. I think that there is so much value in hearing, male and female views. So for me, it wasn't necessarily the gender piece. It was more the fit. But I will say, after being part of WPO, I probably share things in my chapter meetings that I may not if it was mixed gender. If I'm being really honest,
yes.
That's just it's a very much a cone of silence and a safe place. Like I don't feel that if I need to cry in my meeting, I cry. That's just the way it goes. Whereas I think if it was mixed gender, I may hold back a little bit if I'm really, really being honest about it.
Excellent. Well, look, the next section is the build section, and we all want to hear more about bottom line. So when someone says to you, hey, Lisa, what do you do and how do you add value? How do you answer that?
Well, in terms of what do I do? So I make jokes about this, but there is some truth to it, is that I get to go in and tell companies that their baby is ugly all day long. But then I get to also...
Another Seinfeld leak.
Totally. But, the good part about that is people are like, ew, why do you enjoy that? And the reality is that if we can identify, what isn't working, we can then also use that information to identify what will work. And I think that is where the excitement for me comes in, is if I'm telling you your baby's ugly, okay, we've identified that, and now we can figure out how to fix the problem. And if I can help you, get from A to B and actually reach that goal, that's where the really exciting stuff comes in.
Great. Well, we talked about, research and market research. So what do you know about market research that many others miss?
Oh, that is an excellent question. I think it's maybe not what others miss more than it is just my philosophy on research. And it's that it doesn't have to be complicated. I feel like so many firms make market research out to be this like big scary thing, and you need to have, procedures and protocols for running focus groups, and interviews have to be done in a certain way. And at the end of the day, they're just a conversation. They're a conversation to gather information to get to some sort of a hypothesis or an outcome. And I often will talk to small businesses about research, and they give me this like deer in the headlights look of, oh my God, you want us to do research? Like that's A, going to cost $1 bajillion, and B, it's going to be so complex and take forever. And my simple answer is, even if you're going to do research yourself, just go and have some conversations with your customers. It doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be complicated. And, instead of doing all the talking, do more of the listening. And that's where you're really going to get something valuable out of it.
Yeah, well, look, I spent 18 years at Coca-Cola, and I spent most of that on the bottler side. So think of it as the franchisee side versus the franchisor. And they were just brilliant at research and market research. And, most of that was external firms like you providing services into the business. But, anything we were going to do with a brand had to start with a consumer in mind first. So, it was often identifying, like you said, a hypothesis that this is an opportunity, and then validating it with the research. And I must admit, as a small business owner myself, I've sort of left that. That was one of the great learnings I got from the Coca-Cola company, but I haven't really applied it. So what's some advice for someone like me and, everyone else listening at the moment that may have had a good corporate background and understand market research, but haven't applied it to their own business? And you hinted a little bit to it, but just take us a little bit further into, someone like myself, running a service-based business. How could we better do some market research?
That's a great question. And I think, the simple answer is pick a couple of key areas that you think are maybe not working well in your business or where you'd like to improve, and then get to that hypothesis of why you think that may be happening. And then go, okay, is this that I need to do some further competitive analysis? Is this that I need to understand my customer needs better? And so kind of really narrow it down to what's the answer that I need in order to answer this question or this problem that I have. And then again, back to the keep it simple is, if it is literally just understanding what's going on for your customer, book a couple of phone calls or Zoom meetings, doesn't matter, with who's your best customers, and ask them, what do they love about working with you? What do they hate about working with you? And obviously take the feedback on the chin if it's feedback that you don't necessarily want to hear. But then the one thing, and this is the most important thing, is once you've come to that answer of, okay, this is very evident that this is how my customers feel, or this is what the issue is, make sure you do something about it. Nothing is going to upset your audience more than asking for their feedback and then never doing anything with that feedback. And that's where I see so many businesses get stuck in the research conundrum, is that they'll go out and do research, and then they either A, don't really know what to do with it, or B, they might know what to do with it, but they don't do anything with it. And it's such a missed opportunity.
Great. Well, let's dive a little bit into some of these, because I think the framework's great. So, often people say, is it best, will a customer really say what they think to me? You say, go to your best customers, love or hate. Often we've got really good relationships with these people. They don't want to offend us. They don't want to tell me that my baby is ugly. Right. So what's your view on that? Is it best that the owner asks the questions or someone independent asks the questions?
I mean, obviously, it's always better if it's a third party. They're going to tell more to a third party than they are to you, because you're right, they aren't going to want to hurt your feelings. But if you're finding that you're getting up against this place where, okay, they're not really telling me, I can see they're sugarcoating it, then be bold and go talk to some past customers, ones that have fired you, ones that have already expressed their displeasure with working with you. We all, I don't care who it is in business, we all have somebody that's moved on for whatever reason. That is where you can get a ton of information from, and you're probably not going to have that filter of sugarcoating that happens from your best customers. So true. And a customer popped to my mind. I had a customer in my mentoring program, and he said, look, it's confusing for me. You're getting me to do all this extra work I don't want to do, blah, blah, blah. And, I took it really personally. It was like, he told me my baby's ugly, because I had to take pride in what I do. But
every time that I make the improvements that he told me about, I actually send him a note and say, here we go. I appreciate your feedback, and this is what I'm doing about it. Never to win him back as a client, but, like you said, that feedback loop to tell. But, and it's I found it really, really hard to take it, but because it's your business, right? It's your heart and soul in it. But I think you've got to, where you can be is objective. And I love the thing that you said, you've got to do something about it. And that third party, does it have to be, someone like yourself, Lisa, and your team with incredible experience, or can you get, someone else in your team to do it, but as long as it's not the owner? What's your view on that?
I mean, obviously self-serving for me to say, hey, It's got to be an expert. For sure, you're going to get an added level of value with an expert simply because they've been there, done that, got that t-shirt, and they know the steps to be taken. However, it doesn't have to be an expert. It could be just an unbiased third party. So even if it's somebody within your company that maybe isn't that client's account manager or doesn't have direct day-to-day interaction with that client, that would be better than the person who talks to them day in and day out for just to ask for that feedback. The other way to look at it is to do, some sort of an anonymous survey. Those are tough. I mean, the data that you get out of them is, I'm going to say, mediocre, but it will at least tell you something. But that would be my advice, is at the very least find somebody that doesn't have that day-to-day interaction to have the conversation.
Right. And what about a mix between, quantitative and qualitative? So, there's a lot of, desktop research you can do on your competitors now versus, the qualitative. Is there a mix? Does it, just give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So my particular approach with research, and of course everybody has their own way of thinking about it, I personally prefer to start with secondary analysis, come to a hypothesis, and then validate with primary. I have lots of colleagues in the industry who do the flip of that, but that's just kind of my way of approaching it. I think when looking at, how much, quant versus qual, it depends on the answer you're going after. It depends on the challenge. Because in some respects, secondary is all you really need to answer the question sometimes. And I think that, there's a lot of research firms that are going to sell you a big fancy, primary research project that might not really be needed to answer the question that you have.
Great. And look, we've obviously talked about what a business owner, service-based business owner, seven-figure, that's effectively who's listening. But what about your ideal client? I know that's not necessarily your ideal clients. Who are the people you love to work with?
So love that you're asking that question. And typically the answer is, a mid-sized, so on the smallest in revenues, a couple million in revenue. Largest is about 300 million in revenue. But they're fast growing. And it's that growth mindset piece that's really the clear differentiator for us. It's clients that are willing to hear that the way that they're doing things may need to change, and that they're open to change. And it's usually that growth mindset that makes them open to hearing reason on why things may need to change. And we're very industry agnostic. We have worked with, oh goodness, you name it, we've probably done a project in that particular market vertical. But it's really just the size of the client, the mindset of the client that is the differentiator for us.
Great. Well, if we take, you don't have to mention the name of the company, but obviously if you want, you can, but like a $2 million company, if you take just a quick example of, what research you did and what was the result that came out of it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, I can think of many. One that's coming to my mind, it's actually really an interesting project. So we have an energy drink company, natural energy drink company that we do work with, and they originated in Europe, and they wanted to launch first in the Canadian market and then into the US market. And they did an impact assessment with us, which is our kind of first initial market research and strat planning that we do with our clients. And one of the biggest things that came out of the research, two things. One, the pricing was completely off for the Canadian market. And two, the drink itself was never going to sell here because it wasn't sweet enough. It was too bitter.
Right.
And so sometimes research doesn't necessarily have to, mean, do we run Facebook ads? That can be part of it. But I think people forget that actually looking at, does the product meet up with, who is going to buy that end product, and are they even going to like it? One of my most favorite examples of that is when Harley Davidson built, I think it's the $30,000 or $20,000 Harley. And it was because it was identified that if they want to go after that younger demographic, they need to build a cheaper bike. Simple as that. Yeah. So that's probably one of my most favorite examples. And I mean, that fast forward a few years and they've now launched right across Canada and across the US. It's been a tremendous success, but they had to change the whole formulation before we could actually go to market with them.
Yeah, well, look, having worked at Coke, I've got so many examples that I give you, but one quickly was we had a subsidiary that I was head of marketing for, and we were launching, it was an ice cream that had, it was fruit only. Right? So the proposition sounded fantastic. The product tasted great. And basically the whole business was behind launch. It was like, this thing is going to turn the business around. And I said, well, we need to get some consumer research, right? Let's practice what the Coke company, because it's a subsidiary not under the Coke brand. And sure enough, consumers came back and said, we just don't understand this proposition. It's just not going to work. So I had to front the board and say, look, here's the independent research saying no. And then, that sort of led to me realising, because they said, well, we don't care about the research. And that led me realising that maybe that wasn't the company for me to be in. Mm-hmm. But, so market research changed my career, and I wouldn't be talking to you today without it. So there we go. That's the parallel. So just a couple of quick questions before we move into the live section. So, your sales system, like who does all the sales within your business?
So funny enough, we don't do a lot of, cold outreach. We have grown primarily by referral. And the, limited business development efforts that we do are me, actually. That's kind of the one role I still have in the day-to-day of the business. We do have one gentleman who helps me with, basic, I hate the word prospecting, but we'll call it identifying companies that we maybe don't work with today and would like to, and helping facilitate, a conversation. But those are kind of far and few between. For the most part, I'm busy talking to clients that say, hey, we saw you did this for, XYZ company. Could you do that for us?
And has that changed at all during COVID? Because I know a lot of people I'm working with at the moment, their referral sources have dried up with COVID, and now they're looking at, making sure that they've got other avenues for leads. What about you? Have you seen a change in that?
To be honest, I have, but in the opposite direction.
Okay.
We have so many companies banging on our door right now saying, like, everything has changed through COVID and we don't even know what way is up. Can you help us figure out what to do next? And so on an hourly almost basis now, I'm getting a phone call from somebody saying, hey, I sit on this board. This company is really struggling. We do not know what to do. Can you come in and they often jokingly say, work your magic. I don't think it's magic, it's science. But so honestly, it's been the opposite for us. We have been so busy this year. We've truthfully had trouble staffing up fast enough, more than the opposite. And what I have found that's been actually kind of nice to see too is back to that support network. People that knew that we existed, but maybe hadn't worked with us in the past or hadn't really, checked us out or had a conversation are now starting to do that. And I'm seeing, businesses that weren't referring to us before are now. So I don't really have a good answer as to the why yet. I haven't had time to dig into the why, but we've seen the opposite. It's been a great year for us.
Oh, that's fantastic. And look, I think, the classic case is that, the cream rises to the top, and no doubt that's happening for you. So before we go into the live section, which is the next section, I'd like to talk about our assessment to help you work out if you're going to have a high or low seven-figure business in 2021. Just go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/assessment and answer the 15 questions in less than 3 minutes. And based on your results, you either get a free 45-minute strategy call where I'll walk through a clear plan, and it is a strategy call. It's not a sales call, it's a strategy call. And also for those that are at the top of their results and, you've absolutely get a great result, I'd love for you to come on and share your success and your story, just like Lisa is here today. So go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/assessment. So the next section is the live, as I said, Lisa, and just reminding everyone that we are listening to Lisa Genovese or Genovese, depends what part of the world you're in. And you can find out more about her at wearebottomline.com. But for you, what are some daily habits that make you successful?
For me, a couple of, they're small things, but I couldn't live without them. Number one thing, a few years ago, I stopped sleeping with my phone in my bedroom. It now lives, when I'm done the day, in my home office. And one of the best things I've ever done. The other big one, when I wake up in the morning, making sure that the first thing I am not doing is running and checking my phone. So I have a bit of a morning routine that I get up, I do my hygiene, have my shower, all of that, have breakfast with my husband. Then I'm going and checking my phone before I'm starting work. I made that shift several years ago, and one of the best things, that I've ever done, because I would sleep with my phone beside my head, and it was the last thing I looked at the end of my day and the first thing I looked at in the morning, which is just super unhealthy. And then the other really big thing that I try to do is before I go to bed every night, just write down or think of, depending, a short list of what was I grateful for from the day. And I know that it sounds cheesy and it's very woo-woo, but really just that positive focus exercise for me. I sleep better. I wake up more refreshed. And it also helps me celebrate. I'm not great actually at celebrating wins. I'm just this kind of, methodical person, I guess, where it's like, okay, well, that was a target we were supposed to hit. Great. On to the next thing. And so I've really tried to work on, when we do hit a milestone, like, hey, that's awesome. Let's celebrate why that's great, instead of just, okay, yeah, what's the next thing? So those are just 3 small things that I try to do on a regular basis.
And you spoke about Corey before and the support he's given you, but I'm going to make sure he listens to this, right? I'm going to actually send him this recording, even if you don't give it to him. So what would you like to say to him? He's listening right now. Hi, Corey. What would you like to say to him about the support he's given you?
Oh, wow. So many things. I'm so grateful for all the times that you've listened to me and told me that, hey, it's going to work out after I've had a really bad day or something cruddy happening, reminding me that, you can do this. Don't give up. There were many times I wanted to give up. And at the end of the day, just knowing that whatever happens, that he's always going to be there for me, and that there's no judgment passed. That's the other big thing. I feel like I have that safe space at home where I don't, with that extrovert introvert piece, I don't feel like I have to make any excuses at the end of my day if I've had a tough one and I just need to be by myself. We have kind of that unwritten rule that if I need to go recharge, I just go do it. And there's really no questions asked. And I'm so grateful to have, that in our relationship, that I really don't have to put on a brave face at home. And so I thank him for that very much.
Well, the next section is the give section. So what charity or community are you passionate about, and why?
Oh, so many. And I certainly do a lot of volunteer work on the personal side, but I will say that one of the things I'm most passionate about is helping other entrepreneurs So I'm part of many different startup incubators. I'm a mentor in the Alberta IoT Center of Excellence Fast Track program. And I love being able to share my journey and what I've learned along the way. I don't claim to have all the answers. I know I'm not perfect, but to at least be able to save someone else from making the same mistake, that I did 5 years ago or 10 years ago, that I'm really, really passionate about. And I so believe that entrepreneurship and small businesses, especially in Canada, they are the backbone of our economy. And, being able to give that support back, like I got it through my career, that's just huge. And so that's something I'm really, really passionate about.
Brilliant. And that's why we got you here on the show, a show called Build, Live, Give. So a beautiful example of that. And I give all the proceeds of my book called Build, Live, Give and a portion of my revenue to the Purple House. So you can go to purplehouse.org.au to find out more. So the last section is the rapid response section. So I'll ask you a couple of questions and get some rapid fire responses. So the first one is, what are your top 3 personal effectiveness tips?
Everyone that's busy needs an admin. I would die without my EA. The other one is time management and making sure that you are scheduling everything out. It doesn't get done if it doesn't go into your calendar. And focus on one thing at a time. So if there is something in your calendar that you are supposed to be doing at that time, put the phone away, put the emails away, and focus on that one thing. Get it off your plate, then move on to the next thing. I used to be queen of trying to multitask, and no one can multitask. I don't care what they say.
Correct. Not for something that's complicated anyway. So what tech is essential for running your business?
We use Rike for our project management software. Couldn't live without that program. Slack for communication is big. And then, there's a whole slew of other tech we use depending on the project. Fun fact, and I can't talk too much about it, but we're in the process right now of building out some AI that would actually help us on the secondary analysis side. So there should be some new things, new tools to add to our tool belt here coming in 2021.
Now, I know, someone that runs a market research agency, might be hard for you to answer this, but what's your best source of new ideas?
New ideas. Honestly, that comes from so many different places, but I personally get my inspiration from group discussion and group collaboration. So we do what we call internal brainstorming every 2 weeks, and it is kind of like open forum where everybody is expected to bring a project that they are working on to the table, and we brainstorm ideas on challenges, creative, like you name it. But that's where not only do I feel like my best ideas come from, but where I get energy from as well.
Brilliant. And the last question is the big question, and I'll leave it to the end for that reason. But what impact do you want to leave on the world?
I really, again, back to the small businesses, the backbone of our economy. And honestly, I feel like that is in most countries. I want to be able to leave just a legacy of better businesses, people that have been able to reach their goals, achieve what their wildest dreams are, and be able to look back one day at the end of my career and say, yeah, I helped them do that. Not to take the credit for it, but more so just to the pride in helping them reach something that was special or important to them. That is what is important to me in my career.
Excellent. Well, it's been so great having you on the show, Lisa, and thanks for sharing your wisdom and knowledge. And for everyone listening, Lisa is just a great person to talk to. So I've been very lucky to have a couple of conversations, and her knowledge in this space is second to none. And that's why she's getting so many referrals, even in a time of COVID. But you can find out more about Lisa at her LinkedIn profile. So that will be, both the page, which is the BottomLine, and also we'll have all the links to her and her personal profile in the show notes. And also you can find out more about the site as wearebottomline.com. BottomLine.com. And once again, that will be in there. So absolutely wonderful having you on, Lisa. And thanks for putting not just a smile on my face, but everyone that's had the opportunity to listen today.
Oh, thank you so much, Paul, for having me. This was wonderful.
Excellent. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
I loved talking to Lisa, and I hope you loved listening to her. She's such great wisdom, but just such a lovely person as well. Market research is not just for the big guys. I think that's the biggest thing I took out of it. You can get the fully transcribed show notes at paulhigginsmentoring.com/podcast. What is your biggest takeaway from Lisa and her interview? Please share on your socials, mentioning Lisa and BottomLine. She will love you for it. To find out more about BottomLine, go to wearebottomline.com. If you believe someone would also benefit from the show, please share it with them. They will love you for it as well. Find out the assessment to know if you will have a high or low seven-figure business in 2021. Just go to paulhigginsmentoring.com/assessment. Please take action to build, live, and give.
Thanks for listening to the Build, Live, Give podcast. If you like what you heard, please share it and leave us a review. It would mean the world to us.